Welcome to our podcast. This is another recorded episode of Stay Classy San Diego, with video production and studio provided by MaxLux Media, sponsored by Dorada Nutrition, with your host being myself, Steve Wire, a freelance reporter. This podcast is dedicated to fostering quality dialogue surrounding all things local policy related in North County, San Diego. Join us weekly as we interview political leaders, analysts, professionals, and community members on issues ranging from homelessness to housing density to elections. Well, I'm really excited about this episode because today we bring to the studio Corey Liuget, who's a former American football defensive tackle with the San Diego Chargers. Corey played college football at Illinois and was drafted in the first round of the 2011 NFL Draft. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Corey. Just to give some background info for people who might not be familiar, as I said, he was selected in the first round as the 18th overall pick by the San Diego Chargers, who are now the Los Angeles Chargers, sadly. For us, those of us in San Diego. He played for the Chargers from 2011 to 2018, starting in 103 games and recording 291 tackles and 26 sacks over his career. He also had various stints playing for the Oakland Raiders, the Buffalo Bills, the Houston Texans, and announced his retirement last year. Is that correct, in October?
Yes, sir.
Corey has graduated with a sociology degree. He grew up in Miami's Liberty Square housing projects, where his mother raised him and his siblings as a single parent. He and his siblings helped their mother by selling food items that they made together, and he had a successful high school football career as a quarterback and was highly recruited by colleges. His hobbies include fishing, and he has a big love of the water. Another big thing that he loves is nonprofit work. He's hosted fishing trips in San Diego for children from area nonprofit agencies, and he's involved in F3G, Fish, Food, Feel Good, yep. An organization that collects fish from sports fishermen and distributes it free of charge to local charities. And he's also been involved in helping organizations in youth sports, which we're going to talk about a bit today, including Camp Swag, House of Pancakes, Del Mar, NFL, and NFL Air Attack. So we're going to talk about all that today. But first of all, thanks so much, Corey, for coming on the show. Really appreciate having you. This is the first kind of episode we've done like this with a professional athlete, so we're super stoked. First of all, before we get into some of the philanthropy that you're involved in, I wanted to talk a bit about just looking back at your career. It's been a few months now since you retired. Sort of your thoughts since that time on, what you're proud of about your career, what you feel like you accomplished, and sort of some of those reflections.
Thank you for having me too, also, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate that. And the intro was great. You hit it all on the cylinders, man. On every one of them. For me, my NFL career, when I look back at it, it was such a great time. Great time. I went by like a quick second. To be honest, 10 years, you don't know how fast it goes until you while you're in it. But when you look back at it, man, 10 years went by so fast. And I created so many awesome memories from the guys that I played with, the coaches that coached me, and going into those hostile environments, I'll never forget going up into Oakland in the black hole where these guys throwing batteries at you, as you're warming up in your warm-up,
It's a crazy place.
It's insane, man. So, those type of memories, they are lasting experiences. And for me, man, I'm just thankful that I got to experience them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's awesome. And I wanted to talk about, in terms of your time with the Chargers, you made a point, although you had different stints on different teams. As I mentioned, you were signed to the Raiders, the Bills, the Texans. You retired with the Chargers. Talk about the Chargers organization, your respect for that organization, and sort of why it was so important for you to retire with them and end your career on that note.
For me, they gave me the opportunity of a lifetime. 32 teams, 31 teams passed on me. They took me at 18. So the Spanos family, I'm forever thankful for them for bringing me to this fine city of San Diego, for one. And then once I got into the building and got to know them and how they operate as a family and as a whole, it was nothing but love and true appreciation for their players. On my end, from my view, some guys might not feel that way, and fans may not feel that way, but the Spanos family is a great family. Mm-hmm. They always take care of the guys that they feel are very good and that they want to keep around. And my overall experience, like I said, was a phenomenal one, being a part of the Chargers organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I'm sure there's lots of highlights, as I talked about. You had all those 291 tackles, those 26 sacks. I believe you had at least one defensive touchdown in your career.
Yeah.
So out of all those memories, and I believe that you had various awards and such, but is there anything that stands out to you in terms of this is a memory or something that's going to stay with you the rest of your life from your career with the Chargers specifically that stands out to you?
Oh, heck yeah. Me going and get Drew Brees, he actually broke the touchdown record against us, I believe, Monday Night Football in New Orleans.
Okay.
And it was the play right after that he went ahead and broke the touchdown record on us. I was able to go get him and get a sack on him.
You got a sack on Brees.
So that
nice.
memory there in New Orleans in the Superdome was by far one of the best memories
Yeah.
I ever had as an NFL player because he set the record that game, and I got to go
And
get
you
him
got
in a
the
sack.
sack,
Yeah, I
yeah.
went and got a sack.
That's
So
awesome.
that one, and then going to sack my favorite, not favorite quarterback, but favorite team quarterback, who was Aaron Rodgers at that time. I grew up a Packers fan, loved Brett Favre, we went up to Lambeau, probably my second to last year with the Chargers, and I was able to get Aaron Rodgers, and I got a sack off of Josh Sitton, a guy who hadn't given up a sack in almost 70-something snaps. 70-something games, and I was able to get a sack on him, man. So that was huge also too.
That's huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's still around. So Drew Brees retired. What was that? 2 years ago.
Yeah,
But Aaron Rodgers is still in the game. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you about though is, as far as specifically your time in the NFL, like there's a lot of questions that people have about, what it takes to, be in the NFL, as athletes, somebody who might be an athlete watching this show in particular, what it takes to get to that level of play, what it takes to get to that level of success. And then I'm curious to know, like, in terms of after being in your career for so long and playing with the Chargers, like, do you have any takeaways in terms of what made you successful as an athlete, what made you successful in your time as NFL as you were, to the degree that you enjoyed it in those 7 or 8 seasons that you had? Like what really allowed you to be successful during that time, and what were some of the takeaways that you had there?
What allowed me to be successful was my desire.
Yeah.
My desire to go and play the game, and just the true desire of just trying to win each and every match and every game that we went out and played. My passion, of course, a lot of people like to say passion comes and goes, depending on your mood, but the desire that I had to go out there and perform at the best that I could each and every game, week in and week out, was what kept me going. And then the discipline and the dedication, and all of the 3 Ds that comes with it. But my desire, I would say, was the number one thing that kept me going in the game of football, and just kept my hunger alive within it.
Where do you feel like that comes from? I mean, like everyone's background is different, everybody's story is different, but in terms of, because I've talked to other like professional athletes as well, and I feel like for each person there's a different takeaway. Like, do you feel like it was the background, the way you grew up, something about your upbringing that kind of equipped you with that desire to win, or do you feel like it's something that you just developed on your own later in life?
Oh yeah, of course. I definitely like to think that growing up in Miami, Liberty City housing projects definitely groomed me to be a tough SOB, and it made me realize, like, hey man, nothing in life is gonna be cheap or easy. So you have to go out there and earn each and everything. And that's what my mom, at the time I didn't understand, but that's what she was teaching us when we were walking through the project housing, of selling candy apples, conch filler peanuts, and sweet potato pies, and doing those things, learning how to make an honest dollar and an honest living for us, so that way we don't have to ever worry about making the wrong mistakes as her kids, getting in trouble with the law or not obeying your teachers and not doing things the correct way. So that, what my mom instilled in me as a young kid, I believe definitely helped and paved the way for me to get to where I'm at today.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, as I said, for everybody it's different. For some people it takes time and life experience to find that, but it seems like for you that sort of hunger and that desire to win came from an early age and propelled you to where you're at now. So I want to talk about that in terms of now that you've retired after those seasons of yours with the Chargers, what you've been up to in retirement, what that transition's been like for you. And just a little spoiler, I mean, we want to talk a little bit about the youth sports programs that you've been involved with.
Yes.
And so I want to talk about, since you retired, what have you been up to, and why has youth sports been like sort of a part of that?
Well, since I've retired, retirement the first year was cool. I was like, I'm on my own time finally.
Sure.
I have nowhere to be. I'm on my time. I'm that. Now year 2 has came around. I'm like, okay, what is it that I want to do? What am I passionate about? And I looked into the San Diego high school football scene, and I saw that there's a need for offense and defensive linemen to develop their skill set, primarily the offensive linemen, because those guys rarely get the recognition that they deserve. And that's kind of why we named this bad boy the House of Pancakes, because offensive linemen, they need all the attention. They block for the quarterback. They make the holes for the running back, and they don't get the credit that they deserve. So by us putting together this House of Pancakes for the offensive linemen to get out there, because D linemen, I know how to do that stuff. I can do that all day. So to give back to the kids in that way and in that angle, to see that offensive lineman, hey, we're going to get you better. We see that there's a need here in San Diego, and we're going to address that need for you guys in this sporting world when it comes to House of Pancakes. And that's what House of Pancakes is primarily about. And then when it comes to the Del Mar flag, I mean, all of these kids, man, I look at the 30, 40 kids that we have in our program right now, and currently we're going to play in the regionals in LA, and these kids are happy each and every week that I come out there and practice with them. It gets me out the house. It allows me to be a kid. It puts me in front of more kids, and they embrace me more than I embrace them, and well, the other way around. I embrace them more than they embrace me because they're giving me a purpose right now. I didn't have a purpose as of 7-8 months ago. These kids giving me a purpose to come out and play the game that I love and still be involved with it. So I have a co-ed league with Del Mar Flag, and then also I'm launching the all-girls league on June 6th called Air Attack by the NFL, and we're launching that league at San Diego High at the old Balboa Stadium, bringing football to the city of San Diego, America's finest.
So that's going to be like a football for girls.
Yes, football for girls.
So
yes.
how's that? Is that something that's like unique, or is that sort of taking off in different places around the country, like in terms of girls playing football? I mean, that's sort of a new phenomenon. I think it's taking off around
the world. I was looking at some girls in Mexico. They have their leagues down there that are just killing it. I mean, I'm looking at their highlights, and these girls are like, catching one-hand balls, taking the ball 60 yards down the field. I mean, it's impressive what some of these young ladies can do in the game of football that I never thought I would see happen. And these young girls out here doing it, and I think it's growing. It's now a CFI California sport now, so they'll be playing flag football in high school, and you can earn scholarships. There's nearly 22 schools that are offering full ride scholarship for girls playing flag football.
I feel like a lot of people don't even know about that.
Yeah. A lot of people don't. And man, I'm trying to sign my girls up because hey, that's 4 years of free tuition that I don't have to worry about.
Sure, yeah, there you go. There you go.
So
perfect.
Or any parents who have some daughters that hey, you want to try. It's a free opportunity, for them to get a ride.
Do you feel like in our lifetimes, like that? I mean, because right now, as I said, a lot of people don't know about it. But do you feel like in our lifetimes it'll be so commonplace that it'll be mainstream to the point where people just regularly send their daughters to play football at the local high school? Like, I mean, do you think that we'll see that become mainstream in the next, let's say 10, 20 years? I definitely can see a lot more flag football, high school games and females playing it way more now. Sure.
Because it's giving them something to do than to be on TikTok or any kind of social media platform. Hey, let's get out and showcase your talent.
Sure.
Because that's all I did as a kid. I got out in the neighborhood and I played amongst my friends. Sure. Now, hey, come play at your school.
Sure. I want to talk a little bit about, again, House of Pancakes, just sort of why this was like such an important initiative for you. Like, what do you feel like initiatives like this do for the community, not just for moving the sport forward, but for moving the community forward?
I think it brings the community together. House of Pancakes, like I said, it's a big need for offensive linemen to get the recognitions that they deserve, and which here in San Diego is a huge need. There's a lot of kids that might not get that full ride scholarship, and if we can get the more kids we can get off the school, that's the number one thing, and get them looked at by colleges, that's our number one priority, and by us doing that and getting involved with the youth sport in the community, by me being an ex-NFL player, I'm hoping that the parents want their kids to come with me so that way we can teach their kids the basic principles that we go by at House of Pancakes and for everything that we do with the youth.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And more broadly speaking, I mean, sports is an outlet for youth, to be sure, whether it's football, whether it's basketball, whether it's baseball in America. But like I want to talk about the importance of youth seeing athletes such as yourself as role models in the community, because you have a community now that you're giving back to. You're involved in these different initiatives. Why is it important for kids to see sports athletes as important role models in their community?
Why is that important? It's because they get to see someone that did it. Mm-hmm. And like myself, I come from a situation where I didn't have much of an opportunity coming out of Liberty City housing projects. For me to get to where I'm at in life, it was a tough journey. It was a tough road. I come from low income housing. My mom, it was her and just a single mom raising 5 kids. And I mean, we moved from house to house, and at one point it was just 16 of us in a 3-bedroom home, and we made the do of the best of times where we were at. And for me to continue to dedicate myself and see, hey, I want to become something and do something with myself, I chose the route of sports, and that's what it did for me. It got me out of that environment where I would have possibly just been there working a regular 9 to 5 or hustling, selling water, candy apples, confidence of peanuts, or whatever I would have been doing. I would have been doing that just in Miami. Mm-hmm. As to where sports now have brought me, it took me from Miami to the University of Illinois to now I've experienced the entire world. Sure. I'm here in San Diego. I've been to London. I've been several places. I've been to Minnesota. I've been to India, places that I never thought I would go. I've been there and I played in these places now. Sure. So that's what the sports world have done for me. It opened up the world.
Yeah. Do you feel like as a community leader, I mean, like where, because I think it is safe to say that, as a retired player now, you are seen as a leader in this community, and like where do you see opportunities for yourself in terms of more involvement with the community? Like what else do you hope to accomplish in retirement?
Oh yeah. So currently, right now, I'm working with a detox program called McAllister Group Homes, and they handle a lot of situations here in San Diego, from kids overdosing on fentanyl, some of them dealing with heroin, some of them dealing with other drug abuse. And a lot of these kids are ranging from the age of 11 to about 17. And the judges send them to the McAllister Detox Program, which I am on the board of, with Gene McAllister. And once the judge sends these kids to the program, we have to try to get these kids to understand that, hey, your life means something. Your family cares about you. Somebody loves you, and you're hurting them in a process of you being selfish or choosing your friends over family. And at the same token, we are showing them, hey, come feed the homeless, come get out in the community, come pick up trash, doing little things so that way they can know, like, hey, you're going to have to do something with yourself other than wanting to do drugs and deal with the same group of people. And currently now we're actually going to team up to where these kids will be playing flag football as well too. So that's another activity that we're adding into the program with Gene McAllister. Hey, get them out the house. Let's get them involved in sports as well.
Mm-hmm. And I want to touch on that because the opioid epidemic in America is such a huge issue. The fentanyl overdosing, I mean, it's just plaguing our streets. Absolutely. It's something that we've talked about on this podcast before with some of the political leaders that have come onto the show, some of the mayors, some of the state senators. And I believe that if I'm not mistaken, it's one of the top 5 killers in America right now is people overdosing from fentanyl and other opioids. So I want to talk a little bit about like specifically why this is such an important cause for you and like what this organization is doing differently that's making a difference.
Okay, well, I'll tell you right now, man. The reason why it's such a huge, and I took to it the way that I did because, yes, it is a bit of a sickness for these addicts and people that are going through what they're going through. It is a sickness, and a lot of people like to view it as a choice. But the way that I see it is, the hospitals, if someone comes in and overdose, they send them right out the next day. Mm-hmm. They take care of them, make sure they get sobered up, and they send them right out of the door the next day. Whereas when it comes to anyone that has cancer, diabetes, whatever kind of sickness that they may have that is not necessarily an option of a sickness to have, they get all the proper medical care that they need. They're not just thrown out to the wolves. Whereas some of these addicts, if you just hone in on them, give them the opportunity, put them in a real facility somewhere for a mandatory 2 years. Hey, if you're overdosing on any drugs, you should be in a mandatory facility for 2 years. Mm-hmm. Any type of overdose, or a year, whatever it is, to get them over their sickness so that way they can go home to their loved ones. There are so many families that are losing their loved ones weekend, day in and out. They're losing loved ones because of this sickness of a drug in the community and them not properly being treated. And I feel like
in San Diego, the problem is very acute. I mean, you go downtown and I mean, you hear stories of people overdosing in broad daylight. I mean, it's very evident to people that we have a drug addiction problem on our streets in downtown San Diego specifically. Do you feel like as a city, as a community, we're taking the right steps that we need to sort of tackle this problem at a regional level?
I think there is steps in progress being made. But it's not happening quick enough. Mm-hmm. It's not happening at the rate that it could happen at.
Sure.
So, I mean, I'm anxious to see what it looks like in a couple more years, but I really can't comment on whether or not, how my personal opinion is how I think it should go with all the government funding that is behind it. There should be way more, I just think that hospitals should hold anyone that's overdosing until a facility comes and pick them up and then they take them out somewhere for a mandatory 2 years or a full year. Put them in a full detox program. And that's how you end a lot of these things.
Yeah.
Get them the proper help and don't let them go home.
Yeah.
Because you send an addict right out the next day, what you think they're going to do? Well, I just overdosed 2 days ago. I'll go up and try it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and we've had professionals come on here and say exactly what you have said. We've had, people who work with the homeless, people who work with drug addicts actually come onto this show and actually talk about how when you do this like catch and release policy, it just doesn't work because they're just going to go right back to the addiction. And the lack of support for long-term facilities for these people is very striking, even in San Diego County. So it's definitely something that you agree with a lot of these people on. And I wanted to talk too, though, about moving into a bit backwards towards your time in the NFL, something that's been really a big focus the last few years in the news is
Hey there, San Diego. If you're on the hunt for a way to enhance your health, I have a great recommendation for you. Dorado Nutrition is a company that's all about helping people live their best lives through top-notch American-made supplements. Their expert team has crafted products to support a variety of health needs, from weight management to muscle building and more. And with ingredients like Vidosia agrestis and Tongkat Ali, praised by a well-known neurobiologist seen on the Joe Rogan podcast, these supplements could be just what you need to reach your health goals. And for a limited time, you can get 25% off your purchase by using promo code SD2023 at checkout. So if you're looking for a way to improve your health, Dorado Nutrition might just be the solution you need.
Well, something I started to notice last few years is a lot of NFL players are starting to retire at very early points in their careers. And you can't help but think that this has something to do with the fact that we're seeing this rise in information and that's being generated about concussions and player safety and that sort of thing. That's sort of tied to the fact that you have people who are now deciding to call it quits just a few years into their career because there's all this information now that's available about concussions, about CTE, that wasn't available before. And I think that some people were asking me to ask you about this is like, do you feel like the information that we're getting now about player safety is sort of changing the game, changing the way the game is played, and having an impact on the future youth and the future generation of football players?
Yes, the NFL is taking every precaution they can take to make the game a safer game. They are doing, and there's helmet companies that are creating different technology within the helmets to make sure that the concussion in the brain is it's more stable inside of the helmet. Whenever you get contact, you're going to get contact, and your brain may rattle or shake a little bit. But they are taking all the precautionary steps to make sure that the science and the technology is being put into the actual equipment. In that aspect, guys quitting early and saying, "Hey, I call it quits." I think that's more of a personal thing because, like I said, when I came in, the Rydell helmets were like they were freaking steel on the inside, pretty much. Very little cushion. Now these guys have all type of absorbing pads and shock foams on the inside of it, and even now, if you watch some practices, these guys have these little scully beanie deals that's on top of their helmets now to help reduce some more of the contact that they may deliver on the play. So for me, I see the NFL and the game changing for the better of the players, and it's up to the individual whether or not they want to continue to within the and run that risk of playing.
Sure. I mean, do you think though that with youth, because people are now making, with the information that's out there, people are looking at the game and they're looking at their kids and they're saying like, is this a game that I want my kid to be playing? With the information that's out there about concussions, about CTE, about the long-term health effects. And I'm curious to know, is that something that you even considered like for your own kids? And do you feel like it's going to change the way that the game is played in generations to come in terms of, parents sort of insisting on, like even at the youth level of sports, insisting on certain levels of safety and certain recommendations to be implemented?
No, I don't think that's going to change the game because that's what makes the game fun. The contact of it, the physicality of it. So I don't see that part of the game changing at all, to be honest. And for me, being a parent, a guy that played the sport, I would not recommend like anyone who, well, let me go back. I would not say I would not recommend. I would tell them, hey, make sure your kid is getting getting taught the proper techniques within the scheme of how to play football. Mm-hmm. There's a certain way you need to tackle. There's a certain way you wear your equipment. There's a certain way that you do everything. So I wouldn't recommend my kids to go to a guy who don't know what they're doing within the scheme of teaching a guy how to play the game of football. So on my end, I will always tell any parent, what is this guy, how is he teaching the game? Is he teaching it the proper way? That's number one. And secondly, what was the second part of the question?
Just asking, whether you think that there are recommendations or further recommendations or implementations that can be made to make the game safer to reassure parents at the different levels of youth sports and that kind of thing.
I think coaching, making the coaches go through a tutorial to understand how to properly teach guys to tackle, how to tell guys, hey, if something's not feeling right, you have to communicate with a coach. So I think having the right types of coaches is what makes the game safe also too, and support staff, meaning training staffs and doctors when you're on the college level as well. So having those people around to see when something is not right with a player, like, hey, I think this player might have taken a bit of too much of a hit. That's important. That's something that that's how the game is evolving and becoming more safety. more of a safe haven
Yeah.
because you have the neuro doctors, you have all these guys on the sideline to where if something does happen, they're going to stop the game and bring this particular player out of a game.
Yeah.
Whereas before, when in the 90s, when Junior Seau or Brian Dawkins would hit a guy and get up wobbly, they'll leave him in for the next play.
Yeah.
That's no longer happening anymore. So that's why the CT and everything else, I think you'll see a decrease in it. I recently myself went and got tested last week up in Orange County, and they did a brain scan on me, and I had no early signs of no kind of acute trauma from playing the game, and I played for 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to, and I played defensive line, so I like to think that the technology is getting better. So I'm anxious to see how it goes in the future.
Yeah. Do you feel like in terms of so you because you played in an era, so let me back up a bit. Like when I grew up watching football, I would watch guys like James Harrison, for instance, just absolutely level people on the field, like helmet to helmet, like, just full on, knocking people out. And obviously the game isn't played like that anymore. Now that's a flag or even an ejection. But you played through an era when the rules really started to change.
Yes.
And what was that like in terms of them teaching different tackling techniques, teaching, you can't hit someone in this posture, you hit someone in this position.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like? How much of a challenge was that to have to learn this essentially new way to play the game?
To be honest, I don't think it was much of a challenge because they hit your pockets. They
Yeah.
can't, if you got that fine or you hit a guy improperly, $25,000 fine for your first offense. Next offense is double, and every time after that is double. So you learn very quick to adjust how to tackle and to listen to the rules within the game. But on a more correct way of answering it, once again, that's where it comes down to coaches. Mm-hmm. The coaches helped and understood, like, hey, we can't lose you in the course of a game. So, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to teach the proper techniques of how to tackle, how to do things the right way, so that way we don't have you in the game doing whatever you want to do. And it comes down to the players holding themselves responsible too. Like, hey, I know I can't lower the crown of my helmet. Shoot, all right, now I know I got to hit with my face up, or I got to come to the side of the body. So the coaches show you the techniques on how to tackle, then you have to go out and do it within the scheme of the game. Mm-hmm. That's plain and simple.
And like now, like when I, let's say I'm watching the Super Bowl with my friends, you hear people saying things like, oh, football isn't what it used to be. But I'm thinking to myself, like, so I've played a contact sport before, and I know that any contact is, it's a man's game. It's a hard game. It's a difficult game to play, no matter what kind of rules or implementations you make. What would you say to those people who kind of are sort of thinking that football is sort of losing some of its steam with the rule changes and sort of softening the game, as it were?
Those are the guys who used to seeing football in the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah.
They're used to seeing the guys getting their head leveled off of them. And that's the physicality of the game. And that was football 20, 30 years, and within the last 7, 8 years. That was football. But now it's changing because parents, they still want kids to come and play. Yeah. And they want you to know that this game is safe. You can come and play this game, and it is a safe game to play. And we're going to make sure that you know that it's a safe game, because now you'll see how the guys are tackling different. And if something happened, hey, ref, stop the game, get this guy out. Yeah. Hey, you can't hit a guy that way. Hey, pull him out. And that's how the NFL is going to be able to sustain and stay around, because they're going to continue to take the safety of the game very serious.
Absolutely.
That's always number one within the NFL now.
Yeah. I wanted to also talk about sort of some of your time on the Chargers. Now, you played with a lot of different players. You played with a lot of different. You played with a couple different coaches.
Yes.
And I'm curious to know, during your time on the Chargers, you were coached by Norv Turner. Is that correct? And then Mike McCoy.
Yep.
And sort of just what that experience was like working with different coaches. Sort of if you had any preference in there, or like what was that like working with different coaches, and what sort of lessons did you learn from those guys?
Okay. How can I put this then? Coach Norv Turner was a player's coach, but also a real disciplinarian. He made sure that you handle your business. As long as you handle your business, he stayed out of your way. He was 1990. Super Bowl. We won 2 Super Bowls with Cowboys. Yeah, he was an awesome coach to have around and be in the building and to learn from. Then Coach McCoy came in from Denver, where they had, they had success with the weapons that they had, and they didn't have much at the time that he was there, but they knew how to win. And that's the thing that Coach McCoy did bring in his early stages. He just knew how to win. It's just, I think that a lot of the players at that time, we didn't fully understand him and buy into it. So I think there were some errors on the player side and communication side with, Coach McCoy. But I think if given another year, I think he would have made us a playoff contender team because now people were starting to buy into some of the things that he actually was preaching. And then having Coach Lynn, he was a player. He played, and then he came in, and at first he was huge on discipline. I mean, even from our workouts, we had to do everything as a team. He was big on team bonding, making sure that, hey, whatever we do, whatever one guy does, it affects all of us. So from even the paddles that he had us out on the field running with, the things that he would have us do within the team activities during OTAs, it was all team continuity building and based upon. And that's why he was able to have success early on. And then I don't know what happened his last 2 years because I was gone. But yeah, that's kind of how my whole coaching experience went with the Chargers.
Sure. And you played with a lot of different guys. I mean, you played with all-stars. You played with all sorts of different people that came through the organization over the years. And you played with guys like Dwight Freeney, with I'm forgetting Ricardo
Matthews.
Yeah. You played with a lot of great players, and I'm just curious. Like, was there anybody that stands out over the course of your career? Any teammates? And I'm sure you love them all, or most of them. But was there anybody that stood out to you to the point where it was like, okay, like that was somebody who I really learned something from. That was somebody who I respected, and that's somebody who I took something away from. Like anybody like that.
Of course, Dwight Freeney was one of those few guys.
Yeah.
But the guy that affected me the most, the two guys, was Takeo Spikes.
Yeah.
And Tommy Harris. Tommy Harris he wrote me a note, as crazy as it sounds. He wrote me a note during a meeting one day, and the note, I still have it to this day in my closet right now. And he basically, in the grand scheme of the note, he was like, hey, Corey, you're very young in your profession, and in this profession and in your career. Know that not everyone in this building is a pro. Always prepare yourself, always be ready, and stay as a pro. Never veer from being a pro. And at that time, I was going through a rough rookie season, like rough. I think it was articles saying that, this guy was a waste of a pick, and people were just saying whatever they had to say. They was expressing themselves, which they can. But he made my last 6 weeks of that season the best 6 weeks of my life. And that's when I started to turn that flip, the script from being just a first round pick of coming in to now, like, hey, I got to handle my damn business and be the man. And he showed me how to do that, man. And I applied myself that way throughout the rest of my career.
And because your second year was your breakout season,
Yes,
correct? That's
yes.
when you, I believe you led the team in tackles that year.
Yep.
You had a completely breakout year. And so it's interesting that getting feedback like that from that point on, it was sort of a pivotal moment in your career where you were sort of, maybe a little discouraged or sort of feeling the heat from the press, but you got to the point where you had somebody who stood up for you, somebody who vouched for you, somebody who said, that have your back, and that made all the difference for you.
Yes, it made a huge difference. It did. Takeo Spikes too. He just took me under his wing, and because we lived downtown together, so his condos was here, my building was right next to each other. So he was just literally, hey, youngster, come over and watch film with me. So he taught me how to watch film. He taught me how to break down opponents, and that helped me out so much more going into my second year. To where I was able to pass that along to younger guys as well too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, here's a question that I personally have is, you played against a lot of quarterbacks. Anybody in particular that stands out to you? Anybody you're like, that guy was maybe like, it's hard to say the best quarterback you played against, but anybody in your mind where you're like, that was like a different level of talent to where you didn't see anybody anywhere else?
Omaha. Who says that? Do you know? Who says Omaha?
Peyton Manning.
There you go right there. Peyton
Manning.
I mean, it was insane how he operated that offense, man.
Yeah.
And we thought we had it dialed up. Like, okay, we're gonna fake like we're sending a dime blitz on this side, but we're actually selling our nickel from here. So this week here, hey, you be about 7 yards. And the whole time, every time this guy would blitz, he would be at 7 yards. So we're telling him, hey, stay at 7, but know that you have to push to the middle of the field. You're gonna be at 12 or whatever, and just slowly, but within the snap, see the play clock slowly come up and creep up, and we'll have them by the time we get to 5 seconds. Peyton to come up here and look at it. All right, he's at 7, he's at 12, but he's normally not at 12. Why is he at 12? He'll just automatic. Oh my, something's up.
Yeah.
And now that, because at the time Orlando Franklin was on that team in Denver, he ended up coming here, and he told us the way that they ran the offense, and I was just like, oh my goodness, so they had Biggie and Tupac, and it's a whole bunch that goes into this football stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want to break it all down, but man,
Yeah.
it was crazy how Peyton would just notice, like, hey, you're not supposed to be at 12. You're at 7. You normally blitzing at 7 yards. This guy here is normally in a right-handed stance, and he'll just change it up on you. Change it up. Oh, yeah, they're coming from this side here. And you'll see him make those adjustments all the time.
Yeah.
So Peyton was the number one guy. Rodgers, I didn't get to play against much. Derek Carr, not so much. I think he's a good quarterback, though. He's a decent quarterback, but he's nothing like Peyton. Phillip, I mean, just to practice with Phil was
Something else.
Oh, my goodness. Just being around Phil and how I ain't gonna say he picked our defense apart, but he torched us a couple times.
Got pretty close.
And then the best part of it was seeing Phillip and Eric Weddle go back to back, like jarring at each other.
Weddle?
Oh yeah. Eric Weddle and Phillip used to. Oh, Phil, you can't do anything. You're trash. I mean, going back and forth, talking smack to each other. They both never cursed. Both of them never cursed. So it was just always a very, very good thing to see.
Yeah. What and what was that like? I mean, being around guys like that. I mean, being around guys like Philip Rivers, Eric Weddle. I mean, what does that do to you? How does that elevate you? Not just in terms of your football play, but just in your football IQ, but in terms of just you as a person. Like, what is it like being around people like that?
So, I mean, Phil was a pro. Don't get me wrong. Phil was a pro, but Weddle did it and he showed you. He was a live example. I mean, we would go in and work out as a team from 9 to 1 and be done. Yeah. Weddle was in there until 4 o'clock. He'll go in the weight room, he'll go out on the field, and then you start seeing him bringing young guys with him. Weddle had the young guys coming out working with him. So being around those type of guys is what made me successful within the NFL and helped me stick around way longer than I possibly could not have or did, because I had those guys as leaders showing me how and what it takes to work.
Do you think Eric Weddle was probably the hardest working player you ever saw? Or in terms of the off the field and on the field preparation?
Within my first 4 or 5 years, yes, until I saw Joey Bosa come in.
Joey Bosa, yeah.
Yeah, that
Did
kid.
you guys play together? I forget.
Yeah, we played together for 3 seasons.
3 seasons.
That kid, they had to kick him out the building. That's how much Joey just loves football.
Just wouldn't leave.
Yeah, just get out of the building. Go home, take a break. And even when he goes home, I know his trainer, Todd, they're in the house doing something else. Like, the guy does not take a break. And that's why he's so special in the way he is.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about Joey Bosa because, he's still on the team and you have, a new faces, some of the same faces, but a lot of new faces on the team the last couple of years. And Joey Bosa in particular, do you feel like he kind of leads this team? And what do you think I just wanted you to talk about what he brings to the table in terms of the work ethic and the example that he provides to the younger guys.
From what I can tell from the outside looking, he's what he does bring is an edge rush and a presence. He's a game changer. He's an X factor within the game of football because you have to account for him every snap that he's out there. And what I think he brings to the young guys, and I saw him in training camp working with those guys, is he's now understanding that it's going to take all of them to get to the quarterback in order for them to have success. And that's what I see that he's been working on way more than any other time when I went up to training camp last year. He had the young guys working on their pass rush, working on just D-line specific stuff.
Yeah, he leads that defense, doesn't he?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I believe it's between him and Mac that leads the defense and Derwin James. Yeah. But now that they added the Kendrick guy to the mix, it's gonna be a fucking hell of a season to see.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, they made the playoffs last year, and now the sky's the limit. I mean, you had the loss to the Jaguars was a tough one. But I'm sure you have thoughts on that. But I mean, just sort of as the team stands right now, what are your thoughts? I mean, Justin Herbert at the quarterback. A lot of people are, making comparisons to Mahomes, other quarterbacks like that. Who kind of started in a similar situation. Similar styles, similar presence in the pocket. What do you see out of Justin Herbert, and what do you see out of this Chargers team going into the future?
The future is bright for that whole organization. As long as they got 10, I think 10 is going to be the guy to get the job done. So for me, that's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna put any more emphasis on it. Besides, I think 10 is gonna be the guy to get the job done.
Sure.
For a lot of Charger fans.
You, as we talked about, you played with a lot of guys. I want to just circle back to Philip Rivers one more time because of just the presence that he had in San Diego and sort of what he meant to this city. What he meant to this community. Do you feel as though Philip Rivers belongs in the Hall of Fame personally?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
He's a winner. He's a winner. Yeah, he's a winner. And what Philip did over his career is just unbelievable. I mean, not many quarterbacks got what he has, over 40,000 passing yards. So many touchdowns. Yeah, of course he deserves to get a gold jacket. Put 20 years into this game.
It's tough because I feel like, and I'm a sports fan. I watch football, baseball, etc. I feel like there's a sense that you get from watching sports, and I've played sports myself, that the best team doesn't necessarily always win the championship.
Yeah.
And it seems as though there were a lot of great Charger teams, a lot of great rosters, a lot of talent. It never quite came through with the big one, but I'm curious to know, what is your sort of assessment in terms of, that argument about the legacy of a Phillip Rivers or the legacy of an Aaron Rodgers, where you have this incredible level of talent. Aaron has the one Super Bowl. He gets criticized, he gets knocked for not having multiple Super Bowl rings. But what do you say to those sort of haters who stand in the corner and say, well, look, the guy doesn't have a ring, or the guy doesn't have enough rings. It's sort of a tarnish on the Hall of Fame career. Like, what do you say to that?
I mean, you can't say that. Dan, look at Dan the man. We got to
Dan
take
Marino.
Dan as and then not only Dan, but and granted, I'm gonna say this in no disrespect to Kurt Warner, but Kurt Warner, I don't think he had half of the years that Phillip had, as far as playing wise, within the NFL. But he got himself a gold jacket. Yeah, he has a ring, but when you compare the stats, I believe Phillip definitely outplayed him. And the only thing he didn't do was just get a ring. Yeah. But I mean, Phil deserves a gold jacket, and I think he will get his gold jacket.
Yeah, I believe so too. I want to talk a little bit about just post-retirement. You talked a bit about some of the things that you're trying to do philanthropy-wise, and with the McAllister Detox organization. But sort of again, just moving back to this larger view of you as a sort of leader in this community and what you hope to accomplish post-retirement for the game of football, for the community of San Diego. I mean, I'm sure you have opinions. I want to hear them. Like, San Diego as a whole right now, what are some of the things as a city, as a community, you feel like we could be doing better to help people? To help people in positions like the way that you are, but also, to help our homeless, to help our those who are lower income, to help our drug addicts, to help our people who are on the streets. Like, what are some of the things that you feel like as a community leader we could be doing differently as a city and as a community?
Shoot, I mean, I guess bringing more awareness to some of these things. Having like a city hall meeting, a big city hall meeting in the opening, and having people just come down and talk about, hey, what are some of the things you think we need to improve the city to make it living-wise America find a city? Because it is beautiful here. It's a great place to be. But hey, what is it that we can do to make it better for that kid that's in a high school that has a 4.0 GPA, but he goes to this public school, as opposed to this kid who goes to a private school, who they're both trying to apply for an internship or get to the same place in life. This guy has to take a bus, whereas this guy gets driven by his parents to this internship. So hey, how about we find a program to where, hey, we can figure out some way of transportation to get kids that want to do better with themselves and that's driven and that has a goal. Hey, all right, let's try to meet this kid halfway to where he needs to get to, or she needs to get to, because that's what it all comes down to. Just, hey, if we got the resources, put them in front of certain people. Let people know that, hey, there are programs out here that can help you. Like when my son was going through a heart surgery, a lot of the parents in the hospital didn't understand or know that American Heart Association works. And I explained that to some parents in the hospital, and then they ended up joining the community, and now they're still in that community. But not only that community brought support to them. It brought peace, it brought happiness, and it brought a sense of tranquility to them, because they're like, okay, we're going to be able to get through this problem. I believe there are grant programs within the American Heart Association to where if a family can't pay for a particular operation, that they can help fund it or try to figure out how could they help. So once you let people know that there are ways of helping, I think more people will be inclined to taking that opportunity to get to the top or getting to the next level that they feel will help them.
Do you feel like it's more of the kind of thing where we as a community need to sort of rally around those sorts of solutions, or do you think this needs to come more from our government?
That's both.
Both, yeah.
Both.
Yeah.
Both.
The more the better.
The more the better. The more the better. The more the better.
And one more thing I wanted to ask you about is, I touched on this earlier, but in terms of your background, you talked about being raised by a single mother. You talked about, the experiences that you went through as a kid. And philanthropy is really important to a lot of professional athletes, which is amazing. We see it in the NFL, we see it in Major League Baseball, we see a lot of athletes with charitable causes. But particularly for you, I'm curious, was there something in your background that happened, or something that you saw that inspired you not just to become an athlete, but to become a philanthropist, to become somebody who said, when I get to this position, not only do I want to succeed, but I want to give back to others in this way, and starting some of the programs that you've talked about?
It's just because I come from a place where I didn't really have a chance.
Yeah.
Like I come from the absolute pitfalls in Miami. I mean, I saw my first double homicide at 7. No kid at 7 years old should see a double homicide murder. Saw a stabbing weeks later after that, and that's all due to the environment that I was confined to and that I lived in, and I thought that was normal. That is a normalized life that every kid in that neighborhood when I was growing up, that's what we saw. We was used to the drugs. We was used to the pimps. We was used to seeing those things because it was in our face every day. And for me to make it out of that situation to be where I'm at now, of course I'm gonna come out and do things within the community. So that way, because I don't know which kid I may affect. If I can affect just one kid a year or one kid in my lifetime, I've done my purpose here. I've done my purpose.
Do you, as we close, do you have any like stories for us, like in terms of maybe somebody and I know you've only been retired for a short amount of time, but in terms of, the people that you've been helping through these causes, through House of Pancakes, through Del Mar NFL, NFL Air Attack, through McAllister's Detox, through some of the programs that you've mentioned, like, is there anything that stands out to you? Any stories that you want to share of, somebody whose life you've impacted, somebody who's been helped by some of these organizations, or something that's encouraged you about the work that you're seeing?
Several kids. To be honest, there's probably at least 7 to 9 kids that I feel I've definitely impacted over on this journey, and 2 of them are brothers. I feel like if I pick one, it's kind of hard because all of them have a different space within my life, and but those kids, they know who they are, and they know that I've been there for them, and their journey has been so much better with understanding and knowing that we have very similar struggles, very similar things that we have been through and have gone through, and there's going to be more things that we're going to face. But like I tell them, man, don't give up, don't quit, continue to fight this great fight that we're in, and at the end of the day, you will prevail. That's pretty much what I tell all the kids that I deal with. It's kind of hard for me to give. I could go Todd. I can give you so many names of kids, but the ones that call me and deal with me the most, the D-Roys, the Taj and his brother Trevor. I mean, so many kids that I deal with on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis that call me for advice. I have 3 kids that are in college right now, Derek, and a couple other ones. But I'm just here for those kids, man. I'm just here for them.
You mentioned something at the very beginning, which I think is interesting, which is that you're obviously doing all this stuff for these kids, but this really means something to you. Like, this is giving you a purpose in retirement. This is giving you fuel. This is giving you passion to move forward, and this is something that you're passionate about. So, can you talk about we've talked about the effect that you've had on these kids, but sort of what the feedback loop is there, where it's like actually they're having an effect on you. What that's doing for your life in retirement?
For me, it's fulfilling me. It's giving me a fulfillment right now. Of course, the game of football leaves a huge void. You go from the drilling and the craziness, the fame, to where you coming out of tunnel and everyone's calling your name like you're a freaking gladiator. And Corey, and I go from that to where now that's a beautiful little smile that's sitting in front of me. I say, hey, Mr. Corey, can I take a picture with you? Hey, can I do this? That's better than running out of those tunnels, because I'm affecting a little kid that sees me as this figure, when at the end of the day, I'm like, wow, I was once upon a time this kid. I was this kid at one point, and if I could have ever met an NFL player, this is how it would have looked to me.
Sure.
So I try to just inflict that onto them and make sure those kids have an experience with me that they will never forget.
Sure. What do you want your legacy to be? Not just as a football player, but to be remembered not just as a football player, but beyond that. Like, what do you want the legacy of Corey to be, like, when it's all said and done?
I want my legacy to be told that I sent as many kids off to college as I could. That's the ultimate goal. And that's why I'm getting the scouting license, so that way I can leave no stone unturned for any kid in the San Diego County area. From every sport, I will be able to contact any school across the nation. I'm taking this course on the 17th to the 20th with NSR, to where I'll be a national scout for high schools, and I can send bios and write-ups to every college, whether it's D2, JUCO, D2, D1, and for every sport, I can tell them, hey, I got a golfer here, I have a lacrosse player here, I have a rower here, I have these players, that these athletes that are looking to get a scholarship, and go from there.
You're going to be sending people not just on their college journey, but potentially on their professional journey one day as well.
Exactly.
As a scout.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I want to close with this. Just something fun I was thinking about that somebody asked me is, you had this long career. You had a very successful career. I'm sure that during all this time, it took a toll on family. That it was difficult, raising kids and maintaining a marriage during all that time. What has family life been like in retirement for you? What has it been like, coming back to your wife, coming back to your kids, and sort of having more time than before? And how have you enjoyed that so far?
I've enjoyed it. Let me say this: I enjoyed it quite a bit. The first year was the best year.
Sure.
Second year, more like, hey, you need to get up out the house. Like, hey, you got to go somewhere because you're in the kitchen, you're in the living room, you're leaving your socks here, you got the cups here. She's like, hey, you got to get out of the stinking house. So, so now that's why I'm out in the community doing things now. I give a lot of credit to my wife. It was phenomenal. My kids are great. I have 4 amazing kids that keep me on my toes and make me a better version of myself each and every day.
All right. Well, Corey, it's been so awesome having you on the podcast. Thank you so much. Hopefully this is the first of multiple episodes that we do like this.
Yes, sir.
But in the meantime, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it, man.
I appreciate it, Steve.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
All right, guys. That's a wrap. This has been another recorded episode of Stay Classy San Diego with your host, Steve Wire. Thanks again to our sponsors, MaxLux Media at maxluxmedia.com and Dorado Nutrition at doradonutrition.com. And thanks to all of our listeners for tuning into the show. See you next time. Stay classy, San Diego.